A very pleasant good day to all of our viewers and listeners. We are delighted again to be with you on another edition of Marriage Encounter. We have been sharing for the last 2 or so weeks, I believe, on conflict resolutions. And indeed, it has been an interesting journey thus far. Conflict is something that we like to say is inevitable in a changing world. And if you are married, you will experience some conflicts. So this is an episode that you don't want to miss. We have been sharing about sources of conflict, and we are going to continue just to present those. And later, I mean, not later today, but in the future programs, we're going to delve deeper into some of these issues. So this is introduction. Dr. Braithwaite, good day.
Good day, Dr. Greene. Good day, friends. We are excited. We continue to be excited about the presentations that we've been doing for you and with you. And as we delve into this particular subject, it's created quite a bit of excitement, and quite a bit of discussion. And we really want you to stay with us, to touch base with your friends and remind them that Marriage Encounter is on. And of course, your spouse, give him a shout, give her a shout, and let's do this together. So be blessed today, and we look forward to another wonderful session.
Sure, we invite you to have a word of prayer with us. Father, be with us as we share with our friends, our listeners, our viewers. We ask that you will guide the discussion and grant that those who listen will be blessed, will be able to be encouraged, will be able to take meaningful insights from what we have shared. In Jesus' name, amen. We have been looking at sources of conflict, as I indicated earlier, and we identified work.
Yes.
That's a big one.
Yep.
So many work-related conflict areas.
Yeah.
As it impacts the family, because work is pretty important.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we have to work.
Have to work.
If you get fired, that is stress, big stress.
It creates a different problem.
We're always looking for work. But how we handle work can create problems. Well, this is review, of course.
Yeah,
that's
and then
a big one.
We looked at children, and the fact that when children enter the equation, things change. And it can be a source of conflict. In the arena of discipline, your style may be a little more permissive, the other person may be a little more authoritarian, and it might create some challenges as you attempt to discipline the child. And just general management of children, the finances that are involved in that, also can create some conflict or provide a ground for conflict. So, yes, children as well.
Definitely. Another area that we touched on as a source of conflict is hobbies and outside interests.
Yes.
Things that we do to keep ourselves, some of us like golf, others cricket, others football.
Yes.
And so these hobbies, on the female side, well, there are ladies who play cricket and football and golf, yes. But we may want to add things like gardening and other such things.
That's right.
But your hobby and community involvement, because there are so many clubs and community groups that people may get involved in that can, while they serve a very meaningful purpose, they can interfere with expectations and just time that can be a very scarce commodity sometimes.
Very true. When we think about those types of distractions, you might want to call them, in context of the whole notion of conflict, we recognize that there are so many things, and we continue to mention. We also mentioned television and internet, and how that the amount of time spent on social media or watching television shows, watching sitcoms, or those well, I don't know if people still watch soap operas, but those kinds of things, how it can take away time from the relationship, and how it can be sort of a source of conflict where in today's world everybody is sort of locked into their device. You come home, your spouse wants to speak to you, but you're doing something on Facebook or on LinkedIn, or you're working on some email, or you're just following somebody's status on WhatsApp, whatever the case may be. And that can be a source of conflict. Maybe at night when you're supposed to be tuning into bed, you're still on your phone in the bed, and your wife or your husband may ask, who are you really married to? So it can be a source of conflict. It can be a source of conflict as well.
And I am looking forward to that session when we will address these issues in more details.
Yes.
Because before I got here to the studio, I stopped at the bank. I made 2 stops, and I did have to wait a little bit, but because I had my phone, I was able to do so much.
Yes.
And the idea is that these days, because of technology, you tend to carry your work with you wherever you go.
That's true.
I don't have to complain so much if I have to stand in a line and wait for half an hour, because I can always open my phone and read something. So how we use our time is interesting, and when the technology says, hey, I'm here, do some work or play. There's some persons who are into gaming, and that is their consuming passion.
Yes.
So how all of these things impact our relationship is very interesting.
Very, very interesting. And it continues to impact at a level that, if you're not aware of it, it can be a source of conflict. That's the point we're making. Individuals not sort of knowing or managing some of these realities very well, it can create a lot of dynamics where people sort of clash quite a bit. So, very interesting, very important discussions as we continue.
Well, we mentioned church.
Church, yes.
A lot of people see church as the savior, in terms of not that the church is God, but is that institution that introduces us to God. And serves to protect, to heal, to shelter. And here we are saying that church can be a source of conflict.
Wow. Imagine that. But we spoke to it, we spoke about the amount of meetings that persons can be involved in within the context of the church. You might be a board member, you may be a departmental director, you may be a choir member, you may be a member of the decoration team, whatever the case may be. And so, I've known of people who will say, listen, my spouse is out every evening of the week, because they have a Monday board meeting, a Tuesday, committee meeting, a Wednesday church, Thursday choir practice. And it can create conflict because it doesn't allow the couple to spend enough quality time together.
And in counseling, we do encounter situations where individuals are happy that their spouses are connected to God and are willing to serve God, but they tell you, listen, it's too much, it's overbearing.
Yep.
I did not come into this marriage intending to play second fiddle to the church. I am committed to God, but the church is taking over. So that's another interesting discussion.
Absolutely. I know in your ministerial career, Pastor, you at one of your churches, you had assigned a day when there should be no meetings.
Yes, and that is the very reason. I guided the congregation into the awareness of how important it was that we do nothing on this particular night. In my instance, it was a Thursday night.
Right.
We called it family night. It was a time when you were going to spend time with your family. And church was not supposed to be an excuse for you not spending time with your family.
Excellent.
So we put that in the structure so that at least there was one day when we were very, very sure
that there would be no meetings.
That there would be no meetings at church, no activities whatsoever.
Excellent. And then the final one we looked at was in-laws and friends. And how in-laws and friends can also create a context where conflict may come out of, where in-laws may not know or respect certain boundaries, where friends may not respect certain boundaries, or you have not established enough solid boundaries so that in-laws can sort of encroach upon your family time and your connect time. And I think it's one of those things that I think we could spend a lot of time discussing it, but the truth is this is just a recap. So
that's right. Today we want to look at another source of conflict. Well, one or two perhaps, depending on how the time goes. This one is a big one, financial involvement, and so it may take all our time today.
Yes.
Because, people like to talk about three big things in marriage, and money is one of them.
Yes, sir.
Right? So the whole concept of how we deal with our finances. I want to begin there, Doc, and I know we can say a lot about various aspects of financial involvement and what money means to people and all the rest of it and so on. But just as a beginning, there are people who come to marriage thinking that, listen, I'm married, but I'm going to take care of my individual finances. My spouse will take care of his or her individual finances. And we will determine who's going to help with utilities, who's going to help with food, who's going to help with school fees, etc. And every now and then, somebody says, well, I'm carrying more burden than you. And that creates a challenge.
Yes, it does.
Because it is not what money I have belongs to the family, it's what money I have belongs to me.
Right.
And what money you have belong to you, and we put some on the table to take care of some other things. And sometimes that creates a very serious challenge.
Yeah, it does. And the dynamics of that, Doc, for example, if one person is assigned to take care of groceries, just using it as an example, we know that during the COVID pandemic and subsequently, the bill, cost of food just went
up
very high. And if that person, that is their responsibility, now that the price or the cost has gone up significantly, they still have to carry that burden.
But in addition to that,
yes,
a lot of people said they gained weight during COVID.
I wonder why.
Because they're home doing nothing and they eat.
Right.
They eat more.
Right.
So you are consuming more food.
Right.
You're taking care of the food.
Right.
And I realized, you're eating.
Right. It's not, the food is not lasting as long as it used to last. Right.
I have to ask you, why are you eating so much? Is because you're not buying it?
Right. Right. And so that now becomes an issue because the person who carried that bill maybe for the last 2-3 years was accustomed to spending $1,000. That bill may go up to $1,400. And if that burden is only on the one person, while by the same token, the person who was probably maybe responsible for putting gas in the car, just as an example, during that you weren't driving much.
Yeah, exactly.
I
was going to say utility because a lot of governments gave subsidies.
Right, subsidies. Okay, either or. But that bill for you is now reduced during that period. So while your spouse may have to spend an additional $400, you may be saving an additional $400. But because you're doing it individually, there's no help for each other. And so that that becomes quite problematic. And so the suggestion is that your income, your husband's income or the husband's and the wife's income becomes the income for the home, all right, as a joint venture, and then you work out the expenses coming from the joint income as opposed to individually.
Jen, when I do family finance seminars, invariably, as I present that concept, after the meeting, somebody's going to pull me aside.
Yes.
And say, Pastor, I hear what you say,
Yes.
but so,
All the time.
Some folks seem very reluctant to catch on to this concept. But I struggle to see why it should be otherwise. Because as you gave such an excellent example. The food, and there is no doubt that inflation rates are skyrocketing these days.
That's correct.
So cost of living is going up. It costs so much more to buy food. I remember I was in New York sometime recently, and there was this total stranger. I'd never seen this man before. But he was so upset with what he was taking up. He looked at me and he said, look at this, my brother. He said, 2 weeks ago I came in here, I bought this item, it was $4. Now the thing is $8. And he was just going on, right? I mean, it's a reality.
It's a reality.
And the example that you gave suggests that while food may be going up, and during COVID, because you're not driving, because you're not consuming the fuel in the vehicles, if I'm responsible for the fuel and you're responsible for the food, you have extra costs, I have less costs. And well, I may be rejoicing, boy, I saved some money.
Save some money this month. Exactly. While the other person is struggling.
So that really does not make sense. It makes sense for you to say, the income that we make belongs to the family.
Yes, yes.
And we determine, and I suggest to people, and I know we're going to come back to this in greater detail later on, but I suggest to people, listen, you want to have some extra spending money that you don't have to, put allowance in the budget so that you can have
Each
the
person.
freedom to, have some extra cash to do what you want with it.
Absolutely.
But sometimes I hear a husband say, I borrowed some money from my wife, and, because I didn't have money to do this.
Right.
It just doesn't sound
It doesn't sound too right.
No.
I mean, and the example I usually use is, if it's a two-car family and, the husband happens to use the wife's car because the wife's car was the one that was in the driveway and easiest to get out. And he comes back and then she says, well, where's the gas money? I can't understand that. That bothers my mind, because I'm thinking, if you understand that there's a gas bill, monthly gas bill, you budget for the gas bill. So
Precisely.
whoever uses the car, it doesn't make a difference. Either one can put the gas in the car, because there's a gas expense. And so, these are the things that, can create conflict in the family, because if every time you pick up the car or you use the car or you eat a little extra food and your spouse is getting on you about you eating too much food, or you're just always using my car, never putting gas in it, that is definitely a ground for conflicts that can really escalate into unfortunate situations.
And I think we need to, what we are suggesting here today, friends, is that while conflict is inevitable and while conflict is not necessarily bad, you don't want to be living in conflicting situations day in and day out.
Right.
You want to avoid certain things that can create distress and agony, because they are going to add to the stress that you experience, and that, since we're talking about finance, can be a financial burden, because if you get sick, then you have to visit a doctor and you have to pay. So why not create an environment that is stress-free? So when things are getting rough and I am responsible for the electricity bill, and I notice that you are using the AC, using the fan, leaving the lights on, I'm tempted to say, you don't pay for it, so you're doing that, And all of that creates conflict situations.
As opposed to if it's managed, by everyone, then you understand, taking the lights off is helpful to everybody, managing your fans and AC or whatever the case may be. And so it becomes a joint responsibility of the entire household, and I think that is the principle, the concept that really helps to keep relationships, moving forward and avoids conflict. And as you were saying, Doc, and I like the idea and the thought that while conflict is inevitable and while conflict, it doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing, what you do not want to do is to continue to create environments where conflict will blossom or strive. You want to reduce as many areas of conflict as you possibly can, so that you can have a smooth flowing relationship. And as we've said, finance is one of those areas that if you don't manage it well, you can have quite a number of challenges. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to use turbulence as an example of conflict. You're flying in an aircraft. You hear sometimes the pilot saying, there's turbulence there, we're going to try to go around things. You don't want to be driving through the turbulence and creating heartache and panic. If you're driving on a road and there are potholes, you try to navigate your way, try to avoid them. So that's the point. Try to avoid the conflict situations. But Doc, there's some other areas of finance that can create challenges. I mean, we can think, for example, we spoke about who owns the money, and budgeting principles. But we can also think about just the matter of responsible spending. There's some individuals who have this weakness, you may say. They like to shop. Whenever they see a sign that says sale, they get excited. They seem to forget that, hey, listen, the resources are limited. So we're talking about responsible behavior as well. No, very, very, very important point. Just looking at an individual who, is not able to restrain themselves when they go out. you know. And to be quite frank, the challenge can be anybody's challenge. I mean, for me personally, Doc, I have, you know, over the years, I have tempered myself. There's certain things that I don't do, so I try not to walk around with cash in my pocket, because I have found that when I have cash, I tend to be a little more free-handed.
Oh, okay.
All right, so I manage, you know, by determining, look, don't walk around with cash in your pocket, right? I mean, there may be a specific place that I'm going to, like sometimes we go to cricket and you may have a little cash to do, you know, buy a snack here and there and so forth and so on. But by and large, you know, you want to know yourself. You need to understand yourself so that you can manage your finances in a way that is going to be helpful. But for those persons who struggle with it, then, and you have a spouse who's willing to be supportive and helpful, then you want to work with that person. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And not get to the point where, you know, every time you go out, you end up having to spend. I know some people, Doc, they go into the supermarket, they say, I'm going in to buy 2 items. And it never happens. Come with 2 bags.
Yes, exactly.
you know. And so being aware of those things and putting things in place to help can be helpful and can help you to avoid conflict. Because if every time you go into the supermarket and you say, I'm just going in to pick up 2 things, as a spouse, as a husband sitting down, and I see you coming out with bags every time, I'm beginning to think, well, you know, what's up with the budget? How is the budget working here? you know,
I mean, I like the example that you use where you don't go with cash.
Yes.
I tend to do that myself. Maybe this becomes a source of conflict because, you know, my wife says, I never have cash. Right. But the principle behind it is, I go into a store and there's an item, I may have interest in the item, but it costs $6.50.
Right.
And I find it hard to, you know, write a check for $6.50,
yes,
or even charge a card for $6.50.
Exactly.
So you just decide,
I just won't take it.
I just won't take it.
Exactly.
You know, so it does help you. If you had cash, you just put your hand and say, and
that's
pay
it.
and that's it.
That's it.
So these little things do go a long way.
They go a long way.
Most definitely.
They go a very, very long way. Yeah.
There is also, Doc, I mean, again, and as I said, finance has so many different branches, you know. So we spoke about budgeting principles, we spoke about responsible spending.
Yeah.
But money means different things to different people.
Yes.
You know, so am I going to just hoard, and I'm using this word selectively here.
Yes. Yeah.
But some people believe that if you have money, you should spend it.
Yes.
Some people feel comfortable knowing that the money is there on the bank, so that I can get it. Whether you want to say banking or investing, you know, money can be a source of conflict. How you manage it, how you use it.
Right. Right.
So, are we going to go on a vacation every year? The husband may say, that's what I want to do. The wife may say, no, man, and we don't have any money in the bank.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So one's approach to money and what money means to them.
To them, yeah. Very, very important. I mean, generally, we look at 3 or 4 categories of what money means to people. People see money as security. Some people see it as fun and leisure. Some people see money as control, you know, and some people see money as status, for status, you know, helps to give you status. And, you know, depending on what your background is, if I'm a person who sees money as security, it means that, you know, I'm going to be intent on saving. My spouse sees money as leisure and fun, they'll be intent on spending. And right there you can have conflict, right? If you don't understand that about each other, then, you know, how do you manage when the resources, as you mentioned, are limited? You know, you can have an argument about, you always want to save the money, you know, I only have life to live once, I want to enjoy myself. And you can see where that can go, you know, and that's a reality in terms of how we manage money.
So it's a meaningful exercise to know which one of those categories
You fall in.
You fall in,
Yes.
and where your spouse falls. Because of a truth, I may think, you know, you want me to die and leave this money for somebody else to fight over?
Right.
And because this is my mindset, if I have it, let me spend it on me, let me enjoy it. The other person's mindset is, we should save for the rainy day. We want to have the security of knowing if something comes up, we can move. And that, when you have different views, different perspectives, that is a conflict situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
most definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, finances, you know, we can look at other areas, Doc, because some persons, even in terms of putting aside money, setting aside money for maybe capital projects. Some people believe in owning a house. Some people don't believe in owning a house. Some people feel that owning a house is too many expenses alongside with maintenance. So there are people who believe in just renting, and another person believes in buying. So that can be a source of conflict. You can look at the whole idea of health and life insurance and what people's views are on some of those areas of financial management in the home. And again, can be a source of conflict if one person determines, I don't believe in life insurance, or health insurance, I believe I just have to take care of my body, and you know what I mean? And so you may have individuals sort of seen differently on those matters, and it can be a source of conflict as well.
And I don't want to just take this one in the remaining time that we have, because perhaps the person who sees money as security may not so much be impacted by this, as opposed to the person who sees money as leisure. And then retirement comes, and you realize you did not make adequate plans for retirement.
Yes.
And those years after your active working life can be very long.
Yes, sir.
And not just very long, but very costly.
Yes.
Because a lot of insurance don't cover people after a certain time, and that is when you're prone to get sick, etc. So when the discussion on finance comes up, which is why when we do premarital counseling, a lot of people say to me, I'm surprised that we're talking about retirement. I'm only 24. And I'm suggesting to them, this is the time you need to talk about retirement, because it is a little saved over a long period that is going to give you good delivery later on, as opposed to realizing that you're now 55, 60, you have 5 more years to work. Let me rush and see what I can do. And that puts you into trouble. And what it does under those circumstances is to add stress to your life and increase your burden.
And shorten your lifespan too.
Exactly, yes. So maybe we should say the man who plans and saves plenty for retirement will live to enjoy it. When you have only a little bit, your life becomes shorter.
Because you're stressed out. So today we've looked at financial involvement, and I think that each family needs to spend some time looking at it, discussing, planning for their retirement and other areas of their life. But being so engaged that you understand the dynamics so that you don't end up having too much conflict in this area. So discuss it, talk about it, and relate to it. Plan together well.
Certainly. This is all the time we have for today. We would encourage you to send your comments, your questions, your concerns to us at marriageencounter@slcadventist.org. That is just again, marriage encounter, all one word, marriage encounter @slcadventist.org. Until next week, may God's richest blessings be yours.